Today we'll be checking out the Creepy Encounters subreddit. This first post is by Electrical Load. It's titled, "What Did She See?" So this was when my eldest daughter was 3 or 4 years old. I'll call her Jay. I was cleaning the house while Jay piddled around with her toys in her room, occasionally checking on her. When I started sweeping our living room, Jay started running back and forth from the living room to her bedroom at the end of the hall, just laughing and running. Thinking she's just tickled about something, I ignore her and continue sweeping. Jay runs up to me and just dead stops. She looks up with a blank face and says, "She said she is coming for you, Mummy." Jay looked down for a moment, turns around and proceeds running and laughing again like nothing had happened. I didn't even know how to respond to that. Do I want to know who she is? Nope. Did I want to ask my daughter what she meant by it? Definitely not. Did I grab her and spend the night at my mother's that night? You bet I did. Normally I'm pretty skeptical about most things, but that being as weird and random as it was, creeped me out big time. She's 8 now and doesn't remember, but I sure do. This one's by Is That a Real Cat? I used to share a room with my sister when we were growing up, and one night she woke me, absolutely terrified, whispering that something was at the end of her bed calling her name. I really wish I'd gotten up and turned the lights on, and was being a caring big sister, but I didn't. I told her to stop being ridiculous and went back to sleep. The terror in her voice haunts me to this day. I really do wish I had gotten up and not been a dickhead. But alas, I was. Whenever I mention it, she literally stops mid-sentence and tells me she doesn't want to talk about it. This was going back 30 years now. Posted by Funny Likes. On June 3rd, 2016, I had a social media event. I was an Instagram influencer, and the event was a golf tournament. I posted on my social media asking my followers to come, so when he showed up, it didn't surprise me. Sure, the tickets were $250, but for some reason that didn't click with me. It was a drinking event as well, and he showed up at least tipsy, but having a good time. He was also an Instagram model I knew online. He asked me out for a date after the tournament. I was a single mum, and because of the event, my parents were watching my kid till the next day. I said sure. We went off on the date. We went to a bar, grabbed some food. The man was handsome, but mostly charming as heck. We had a beer, and then in his car he offered me some weed. I rarely smoked, but decided, what the heck. We hotboxed, then went off to the bar. He was friendly with everyone, and made me laugh a few times. Then off to the liquor store for more alcohol, and finally to his house. I was drunk and high, so it was easy to sleep with me. He had a bunk bed, and I remember him being on the top, and being very selfish and aggressive, and being scared. I didn't stop him out of fear. He had driven, and my car was still at the golf tournament location, and we were too far for me to afford an Uber back to my car. The next morning, I went to the restroom, and afterwards, I'd noticed a long pipe coming from the toilet after I flushed. He came out upset, because it was to water the weed him and his roommate were growing. I didn't know, or was too drunk or high still to click. I apologised deeply and was scared. We came downstairs and I looked at the walls and the decor for the first time. Knives and weapons were used as decorations all over the house. I waited for him to have breakfast and drive me back to my car, trying not to show panic. In the car, I know I needed an excuse that wouldn't hurt his feelings. I told him I had a blast and I was so bummed because I really liked him. But my child's father passed away when he was 1, this is true. And I can't have CPS take him away because I was around someone growing weed. I told him I didn't care about the weed and I didn't want him to change, so it was a bummer. I let him make out with me one last time and he dropped me off. I was shaking as I drove off because of the vibes. The very next day, after he dropped me off, he met a girl that was 10 years our junior and an 18-year-old mini-me. He dated her for 3 weeks. She dumped him, and he stalked her like crazy, so much that he was arrested a few times. In September of the same year, he gets out of jail the last time he heads to a bar, meets a girl there, and takes her home. He ends up murdering her, chopping up her body, cutting her heart out and setting it on fire. He's currently serving life sentence for his crime, and I get flashbacks all the time. To save embarrassment, I'm going to say this is from Something Going Something. What is the creepiest discovery you've ever seen? Ember says, the doll that went missing from my bedroom in my neighbour's backyard. The head was mutilated. My neighbour was an older lady with schizophrenia who would constantly ask my parents how I was doing. I preference this by saying I'm an atheist and I don't believe in ghosts or the supernatural. But one time, I had a friend stay in the night at my childhood house when I was about 11 or 12, and we had been in the kitchen and then returned to the living room with all the lights off for a movie. A few minutes later, a plate that was sitting on the counter, at least an inch or two from the edge, flew into the floor. We screamed and went into the kitchen and found this single stoneware plate on the floor. Nothing else was amiss. We talked about how freaky it was on and off for the rest of the night. Nothing like that has happened since then. I have no idea how it was possible. We didn't have any pets indoors. My grandpa was upstairs, asleep. It was super creepy. Another time, this group of kids from my neighbourhood were playing by one of the main street entrances and went into a storm drain looking for a big snake. I had to leave to get to a doctor's appointment, and as we were exiting the neighbourhood in my grandpa's car, we noticed a bunch of people frantically pulling big pieces of concrete out of the storm drain. My grandpa, being the nothing is my business kind of dick he could be in moments like that, just kept driving. As soon as I got back home, I called everyone I knew and found out that Monica, a girl who lived about 3 blocks from me, was down there looking for a snake when a truck hauling concrete blocks took the corner too sharp and dumped the load right on top of her. She had to have a dozen operations on her face and head, and her personality was never the same afterwards. I would have been there, no question, if I hadn't had that doctor's appointment. She continues, I don't know if this is the kind of creepy that you're looking for, but this is the best I've got. I found out a guy I used to hang out with became a serial rapist after he moved away from my city. He used to have parties at his house all the time. He was a successful software engineer and had a big nice house in a very upscale neighbourhood in the oldest part of the city. One time I asked him if I could borrow $20 for a couple hits of acid. I was like 17 at the time and we were all going to raves and shit back then. And he implied I had to do something for it. And I was like, no. I don't even hug my friends. What the fuck are you even thinking? So he told a bunch of people that I was pouring all over him for money, which made those who know me laugh because it would be like seeing a fish trying to ride a bicycle. Those who didn't know me believed him. They got fooled by a serial rapist, and I didn't. Joke's on them, I guess. I knew there was something wrong with the guy, but I never would have guessed he was capable of dextering women and raping them. I actually found where one of them had posted her story of being raped at the Burning Man, and then seeing her rapist on the news for assaulting a woman in Oregon. It made my stomach sink. This story is posted by TJ Wado. Late night phone call. My husband and I own a couple of houses that we rent out. We keep a separate mobile phone to contact tenants. They don't have our regular phone numbers. One day, I got a call from this phone from a tenant asking why we had called him in the previous evening. We hadn't answered the call yet. We just noticed it later. We denied calling. We had no reason to. In fact, we hadn't called him for months. After the conversation, we looked at the phone and sure enough, an outgoing call listed around 11:30 p.m. that previous evening. The spooky thing is that we were both fast asleep upstairs at the time, and this tenant's phone had been on the coffee table the whole night. Nobody else lives in our house. I've tried and tried, but I cannot come up with an explanation for this. Affectionate Tell has a story. My husband woke me up from a nap. Okay, so this happened back in 2021. I was about 25 weeks pregnant. I remember I used to get extremely sleepy and tired, so I'd take random naps all the time. One day, my husband told me that he was going to the store for a few things and asked if I wanted to go, which I replied no. I think I'm going to take a nap. He ends up leaving and I fall asleep immediately. Eventually, I hear him coming in. I just remember it so vividly because I remember him coming into the room and specifically asking me, "Do you want some pizza? I got the croissant crust you really like." I also remember getting excited and saying, "Yes, please." After that encounter, all I remember is waking up once again, even though I had already woken up. But I brushed it off, thinking that I fell asleep again, because I was a very tired pregnant person. I started rubbing my eyes, and I'm extremely confused. I get up, some of the lights are off, so I turn them on. And then I say, "Honey, is the pizza ready?" And no response. I think, maybe he didn't hear me. So I go to the bathroom, and when I get out, I hear the door open. My husband was coming in through the door with a bunch of bags. I was so confused. I asked him, "Did you go to the store again?" And he says, "Again? What do you mean?" I told him, "Weren't you making pizza?" Still confused. He says, "I got it here." I like to blame it on confused, foggy pregnant brain, but this was so creepy, because it felt so vivid. This post by Grand Ad is titled, "Creepy Old Woman." Found this subreddit and had to share this experience. I first want to start by saying, I've had a couple of weird paranormal things happen to me in my early childhood that I can barely remember. This experience, though, really made me believe somewhat of an afterlife. So when I was a sophomore in high school, my neighbour would take me to school early in the mornings because I didn't have my licence. We usually left the house around 6:50, 7 a.m. We lived in eastern PA, so around winter it was pitch black early mornings. Not to mention freezing cold. One day, my ride had to go into school early to talk to one of his teachers, so we left my house around 6:20 a.m. I remember it being completely dark during November and taking the normal back roads to school. To put into perspective, these roads are through the woods with a guardrail on the right. Past the guardrail is an easy 20-foot drop straight into the creek water, so there's really no possible way to get up there from the other side. While driving, my ride noticed an old woman with a complete white dress staring downwards, just standing next to the guardrail. It was like out of a horror movie. It's complete darkness and maybe 20 degrees out. My friend and I were so confused and creeped out. Fast forward a couple of months, and I'm driving down the road with my friend Luke and his father. He was taking us back from a party one night, and while we were on the road, his dad tells me a story of seeing a ghost on this road when he was a young kid. He explained in depth exactly what he saw, maybe 30 years ago. I get chills while I'm typing this, as it's the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me. Chainer Boy 1. The Gas Mask Man. This took place over 2 years ago. One day, me and my friend decided to explore this big field that had mainly factories, and even some houses built around it. All of it now empty. We headed for one of the abandoned factories, but stopped midway because I saw a bunker. Looking inside, it was very dark and appeared to be deep. I knew one of us had to go first in there. I ended up being the unlucky one and took the lead. Climbing down, I turned on my flashlight, and it revealed a small hallway. It was old, and none of the entrances had doors. Looking at the place, I felt something very wrong, like the gut feeling you get when you're in a life-threatening situation. Not moments after, I heard footsteps. They got quicker and more aggressive by each second. I ran up into the exit, with my friend already finding a way out. I got even more panic and slipped. I looked behind me. It appeared as a man, with black leather clothing, fully covering his body, not showing any skin. His face was wrapped with an old black Soviet gas mask. I briefly glanced at the guy as I regained my balance, and then I ran as fast as I could. When I finally got outside, I looked back at the bunker, and he was gone. Our final story for today is by T.A. Cabaret. It's titled, "Woman I Don't Know Links Arms with Me and Wants to Follow Me 3 towns over." This happened a few years ago, but I sometimes still think about her. I, non-binary 20 at the time, I'm earning my way through college by performing in cabaret shows in semi-big cities. My parents help me out from time to time, but it's just enough to buy groceries and pay bills. Also, I don't really have a filter in what I tell people, just in case you are wondering why I told the woman anything at all. I was on my way to the train station to take the train a few towns over for one such cabaret show, and I'm in the bus at the time. I was listening to music on my phone and I had my earplugs in. When the bus stopped at my station, there was a middle-aged woman, I'd say maybe in her mid-50s, immediately at the door to get in. I felt her looking at me. Okay, this happens. I have a clothing style that is unique enough to earn me some looks from time to time, but when the bus door opened, I got out, and the woman turned with me, tapping my shoulder. Let's call her Leslie, since she told me her name, but I forgot everything except it started with a letter L. The conversation is, not word by word, but paraphrased. "Excuse me?" "Yes." I took my earplugs out. "I just wanted to say, you have a very unique style, it really stands out. I love it. You look like you're really creative." She was seemingly very genuine, and I was pretty happy about the compliment. I don't really think about the fact that Leslie was about to get onto the bus, and then she didn't, and she was talking to me now. Oh, that's very sweet, thank you. And yes, I earn my wage doing a formal cabaret. So you're kind of right. Oh, that's very interesting. Got to keep an eye out for posters in town then. Yes, I'm on stage here quite often. In 2 months at this location, for example. Also tonight, but it's not in town. It's in a different town. Sounds like you're about to have a great evening. Yes, I am. The people there are wonderful. Then I'm coming with you. Now hold on. Wasn't she just about to be somewhere? This is also when I realised she didn't get onto the bus I just got off. And the bus had already driven off. Weren't you about to go somewhere? Yes, to my friend's birthday. But I'll cancel. This sounds way more fun. Now hold on. She was about to be someplace and just randomly decided to cancel her plans and come with me onto a train with a person less than half her age and drive 3 towns over, where, by the way, there was no way for her to come home afterwards. I had a place to sleep there for the night, but she wouldn't have. You won't be able to come here afterwards. There's no train that late at night. I have a place to sleep. Leslie was silent. She looked as if she had started to think, and I thought I'd change her mind for a second, but then she smiled again. It's fine, I have a son living there. I don't exactly know what she said there anymore, but I knew it was something to that effect, and I immediately thought she was lying. At this point, I was weirded out immensely, but still not freaked out. I started walking off, since I had to get to the subway still. Leslie took this as a sign of me agreeing, and came with me. I know she was talking the whole way to the subway, and that she was walking pretty slow. I didn't have to rush to the station. I was pretty early, in fact, wanting to grab dinner on the way, which I mentally wrote off at this point. But the way she held me back was linking arms with me and holding tight. I was freaking out at this point, but trying my hardest to stay calm. Whenever I was asked a question about myself, I was lying now. In my head, I was making plans to say I wanted to grab lunch, sitting her down in McDonald's and making a break for it, but Leslie beat me to an opportunity to bail. Sitting at the subway station, there was a pretty well-known homeless person of our town. We had never talked, but I knew his face, and he had always been so polite. Leslie apparently did know him, and got distracted immediately, letting go of my arm. Oh, hi John. How are you? Doing good? Hi. Doing my best. But stuff is shitty at the moment. Oh, you always say that. It's like I always tell you, you gotta... I didn't stay around to hear the conversation and started jogging, then running inside the train station. I didn't want to stop for dinner anymore, afraid that Leslie would find me again, so I immediately ran inside the train. It would be driving off in about 15 minutes, which freaked me out even more since she would have plenty of time to get inside still, so I did what I thought was best and hid in the train toilet until it drove off. Then, and only then, I got out to sit down. I had to change trains once and felt watched the entire time, but Leslie was gone. She did not appear in the town at the cabaret show. I told the story to my colleague and called my best friend, who both helped me calm down. I never saw Leslie again, and today I think that she might have been lonely or confused, but I don't care to find out. Well, thanks for being here with me for another video. I do hope that you enjoyed it, and if you have a story of your own, please do share it in the comments, and it may appear in a future episode. I try and read and reply to every comment that I'm able to. And remember, we can't always explain things, so sometimes it's better to not, and just have a good day. Goodbye for now.